Powerful insights often occur when you least expect them. On Transformative Leadership Conversations, they're at the heart of every episode. Hi, I'm your host, Winnie da Silva, and together we're exploring a spectrum of leadership themes through the compelling stories and insights of seasoned leaders and prominent experts. In each episode, you'll walk away with inspiration, strategies, and tools to enhance your leadership, build effective teams, and lead thriving organizations. Alicia Keys, Bill Gates, Jamie Oliver, Gwyneth Paltrow, Richard Branson, Simone Biles, Walt Disney. What do these 7 famous people all have in common? They all have ADHD. Estimates vary by different studies, but approximately 3.1% of adults worldwide live with ADHD. The estimate for ADHD adults in the US is a bit higher at 4.4%. It is also more commonly diagnosed in men than in women, although research shows that women are often underdiagnosed or diagnosed later in life, primarily because ADHD usually looks different in women than in men. Therefore, it is likely that you know someone with ADHD. You may be related to someone who has it, or you might work with someone who does. Of course, this includes leaders. People with ADHD are executives, founders, strategists, creatives, and team leads. They're managing businesses, leading change, and shaping culture. But many are doing so while silently struggling, especially in environments that weren't designed with their brains in mind. On Transformative Leadership Conversations, we look at leadership through many different lenses, and I believe this is a valuable one to explore. Mental health and neurodiversity are no longer just private conversations. They are part of our work lives. And if you're in any kind of a leadership role, understanding how ADHD shows up at work isn't optional anymore. It's part of leading well. So, I'm not an ADHD expert and I do not have ADHD, but I have seen firsthand how it affects people's lives, both personally and professionally. From people I love, from clients I've worked with, from leaders who are trying to understand how their brains are wired, what their strengths are, where they struggle, and ultimately, how they can do their best work and continue to become their best selves. And isn't that what we all want? So, this series is for you if you know or think you have ADHD and you are navigating your own leadership journey with ADHD and are looking for ways to work and relate to others to contribute meaningfully. If you work with someone who has or might have ADHD, a boss, a direct report, or a colleague, to help you better understand how to support and collaborate with them. If you lead a team, even if no one has disclosed ADHD, this series can help you build more inclusive, high functioning environments that support neurodiversity. And lastly, if you work in HR, learning and development, or DEI, this series offers practical insight into how to better support neurodivergent talent across your organization. Okay, so let's start with the basics. So, what is ADHD? What does it actually mean to have it? And what does it look like in everyday life? So, ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and it is not easy to define. It is often considered part of the neurodiversity spectrum, but most people agree that it is a neurodevelopmental disorder, which means it affects how your brain works and develops. So, ADHD is complex with a variety of symptoms that show up differently for different people. However, many of the symptoms center around our executive functioning abilities. So, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, ADHD is characterized by an ongoing pattern of symptoms that include the following. First, inattention, someone who has difficulty focusing, staying on task, or staying organized. Hyperactivity, someone who is in constant motion, is restless, or talks a lot, even when it's not appropriate. Impulsivity, someone who interrupts others, speaks out of turn, or has trouble waiting. Now, of course, everyone displays these behaviors once in a while, but for people with ADHD, these behaviors happen often and show up across all areas of their lives at school, at home, at work, and in their relationships. It's also really important to note that ADHD is not a matter of laziness, poor parenting, or lack of willpower. While it is believed that ADHD emerges from both genetic and environmental factors, It is a real and scientifically recognized neurodevelopmental condition. Brain imaging studies, including fMRI scans, show clear differences in both brain structure and function when compared to neurotypical brains. So, what exactly is different? Okay, so first there's brain chemistry. People with ADHD typically have lower levels of dopamine and norepinephrine, two neurotransmitters that play a big role in attention, motivation, and emotional regulation. When those systems are out of balance, it becomes much harder to stay focused, motivated, and control impulses. Second is your brain structure. There are several key areas of the brain that are impacted by ADHD: the frontal cortex, which helps with attention, planning, and self regulation; the limbic system, which influences emotion and motivation; the basal ganglia, which helps manage motor control, behavior, and focus; and lastly, something called the default mode network. This part of the brain kicks in and when we're daydreaming or mentally drifting. It tends to stay more active in ADHD brains even when we're trying to focus. So, in short, ADHD changes the way the brain is wired, how it communicates, and how it responds to the world. So, as you can imagine, these brain differences for folks with ADHD can significantly disrupt their daily lives. Common challenges include difficulty focusing, disorganization, procrastination, forgetfulness, something called time blindness, restlessness, impulsivity, and trouble completing tasks or following instructions. While many people occasionally experience these behaviors, again, people with ADHD face them more intensely and consistently. It's also well researched that ADHD often coexists with other mental health challenges, such as anxiety and depression. Now, we often hear about the ways ADHD is inherently challenging and difficult. While not diminishing these issues at all, there is a growing body of research that is also starting to see the potential benefits of ADHD as well, especially when we have the right support in place, which we'll talk about in a minute. So, for starters, people with ADHD often show remarkable creativity. Research shows that people with ADHD often come up with more original ideas than their neurotypical peers when asked to brainstorm or solve open ended problems. Their brains naturally explore different paths and connect ideas in unexpected ways. This kind of cognitive intelligence can be a huge asset in brainstorming, innovation, and creative problem solving. There's also evidence of strong cognitive flexibility. So, people with ADHD often demonstrate the ability to shift perspectives, adapt quickly, and approach challenges from different angles. They may be more open to trying novel ideas or unconventional methods. While this can sometimes look like impulsivity, it often enables adaptability and innovation under pressure. Another trait worth noting is hyperfocus. So, when ADHD is common associated with distractibility, many people with ADHD also experience periods of intense, immersive concentration, especially when they're deeply engaged or passionate about a particular task. It can literally feel like time just disappears. So, when this focus is directed effectively, it can lead to high quality work done in bursts of deep productivity. People with ADHD are also known for their energy and initiative. They're often described as passionate, enthusiastic, and willing to take risks. That sense of drive, especially when aligned with purpose, can make them powerful entrepreneurs and leaders. Some research even suggests they may be more comfortable navigating uncertainty and ambiguity, which is especially useful in fast paced or high change environments. And finally, there's the matter of emotional responsiveness. Many people with ADHD report a strong sense of empathy and emotional intuition. Now, these traits can enhance connection, deepen interpersonal relationships, and can enable them to be more emotionally intelligent leaders. Of course, challenges with emotional regulation can exist too, but in the right context, this sensitivity can be a strength. So, when I reflect on these traits, it's clear that these are also translate into strong leadership capabilities as well, including the ability to connect unexpected ideas, stay calm during chaos, creative problem solving, and building strong relationships. These are the things that great leaders do. But when productivity is expected to look linear with a rigid time frame, those same traits can be misunderstood or undervalued. If you're curious to explore more, I've included links to all of the studies I've been citing behind these insights in the show notes. So, yes, ADHD is really hard, but that doesn't mean it's only always hard. Whether ADHD traits are liabilities or assets often depends on their environment, the support they have, the treatment they've received, and how well they understand and accept how their own brain works. And that brings me to the perspective of one of my upcoming guests in this series, Stephanie Scheller. Stephanie is an entrepreneur, speaker, founder of Grow Disrupt. She's a best selling author and a classically trained violinist. Through her company, Grow Disrupt, Stephanie designs neuroscience based multi-sensory events that help ADHD entrepreneurs stay focused, retain information, and implement what they've learned. And this is what she says about ADHD. ADHD isn't a weakness or a superpower, it's an operating system. And when you learn how to work inside your operating system, your own internal operating system, you can actually become a power user. You can do really cool stuff. You just have to stop looking up Android help articles when you're running an Apple system. Isn't that brilliant? So, you'll learn more about Stephanie's story and what she has to teach us about ADHD in the next episode. But for now, let's take a moment to reflect on how you can, in Stephanie's words, become a power user of your own internal operating system, whether you've been diagnosed with ADHD or not. So, like many things, it starts first with awareness and support. If you suspect ADHD may be a factor for you, consider seeking a formal diagnosis. But even with a diagnosis, ADHD treatment isn't a one size fits all. It typically involves a combination of approaches tailored to each individual person. Medication can help regulate brain chemistry to help improve focus and impulse control. Behavioral therapy, coaching, structured support systems like routines, other tools, and accountability partners can help people develop strategies that work with their brain. And just like most of the big challenges we face, tapping into self awareness is an important place to start. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses, learn what triggers procrastination, what sends you down rabbit holes, and what conditions help you focus and thrive. And then notice, without judgment, what you actually need. Acceptance is the foundation of change. From there, you can begin exploring tools and strategies that actually support the way you work best. So, below is a collection of ideas that could help you do just that. While these approaches are especially helpful for people with ADHD, many of them are valuable for anyone. I use several of these myself, and I've recommended them to countless clients, some with ADHD and some without. Okay, so let's get started on these ideas. The first one is structure your time intentionally. So, one idea is to use body doubling, which is when you work alongside someone, either in person or virtually, which can help you stay focused. For example, try this organization called Flown, which is a virtual co working platform that helps people stay focused by working alongside others in a structured, facilitated sessions. Another tool to try is the Pomodoro method, where you work for 25 minutes and then take a break for 5 minutes to either start or keep momentum going. Practice time blocking and schedule your work based on your energy, not on your availability. Okay, here's another one. Simplify decisions and reduce feeling overwhelmed. One framework to try is the Eisenhower matrix to help you quickly sort what's urgent, what's important, where you should delegate, and which tasks you just shouldn't do at all. Break big projects into smaller steps, and when in doubt, just start with the smallest first step. Next one is make your work visual. Color code your calendar, either virtually or on paper. Use virtual systems like timelines, diagrams, or whiteboards to map out tasks and track your progress. Sometimes seeing the work is what helps you actually do the work. Okay, next, remove distractions and protect your flow. Eliminate clutter, physical, digital, mental, especially during a time you really want to focus. Carve out the space you need to go deep when you're in the zone. These moments are absolute gold, so protect them. Okay, tune into your motivation and energy. Tap into what intrinsically motivates you. If a task excites you, let that excitement pull you in. and then use that spark to build momentum in maybe other harder areas. And when motivation dips, pause, take a break instead of forcing yourself through. Okay, this is a good one for everyone. Take care of yourself, right? Potentially use mindfulness or meditation apps to reset your nervous system. And don't forget the basics: drink water, move your body, get enough sleep, and take some real breaks. These are not luxuries, they are essential to maintaining your internal operating system. Ask for what you need. Do you need feedback? A sounding board? Do you need someone to just listen? Clarify and communicate what you need. ADHD can make it harder to articulate what support you need. Learning how to ask for support is part of building your toolbox too. Now, you don't have to use all of these. Start with one or two, experiment, adjust, keep learning. The better you understand your own wiring, the better you can lead, create, and live to be your best. I've already introduced Stephanie Scheller as my first guest in the series. I also want to introduce you to our second guest. She brings in a different kind of expertise to this conversation. Amy Shilliday is a learning experience designer, neurodiversity advocate, and founder of Shilliday Vaughn Consulting. With over 25 years of experience in corporate learning and development, Amy brings deep expertise in instructional design, adult learning, and team facilitation. What makes her work especially powerful is her focus on accessibility, particularly for adults who identify as neurodivergent. In her work with HR and learning development teams, Amy helps organizations better understand and support neurodivergent employees. Amy's message is simple and profound. When we design learning with neurodivergent brains in mind, we make it better for everyone. And that's exactly what happens when leaders and the people around them begin to understand how ADHD really works, and we figure out how to help everyone thrive. So, I want to bring this to life through a story. So, it's fictional, but it's rooted in some very real experiences that I've seen again and again in my work. This is the story of Martina. She finds herself struggling, not because she isn't capable, but because she's continuously learning how to lead with the brain she has. Okay, so this is her story. Martina is an executive with deep expertise, and she's always had the privilege of working on projects she's truly passionate about. She's known for her creativity, her energy, and her ability to connect dots that others miss. Her past roles gave her plenty of autonomy with freedom to shape how she got her work done. That flexibility worked really well for her. Despite always struggling a little bit with time management and procrastination, she figured out ways to keep herself on track. So recently, Martina was promoted into a senior leadership role, overseeing a much larger team with more complex operations. So on paper, it was a natural next step. But in practice, it felt like her strengths were suddenly less useful and her challenges were louder than ever. And the new role demanded structure, planning, following up, and a level of executive functioning she was finding challenging to access. And her new boss, Stacy, she kind of added to the pressure. And in fact, Stacy had previously held Martina's new role and still carried an unspoken attachment to how things, quote unquote, should be done. She was, of course, well intentioned, but she often micromanaged Martina. Her check ins felt more like audits than support. And tasks that Martina would usually tackle in bursts of motivation began to pile up. Deadlines were slipping, team members were stressed and confused. And Martina who'd always taken pride in being high performing, well, she started to question her own competence. So at first, she tried harder. She was working longer hours, making endless to do lists, and berating herself constantly for not being more disciplined. But the more she pushed, the worse it got. And in fact, it felt like she was like driving a Ferrari with bicycle brakes. No matter how hard she pumped, she couldn't stop careening off course. Okay, so one afternoon, while missing a deliverable that led to a tense email from Stacy, Martina found herself in tears on a call with her best friend Annie, who truly understood her. And Martina said something like this: I think I'm failing. I can't seem to make myself do the things I know I need to do. and I keep letting people down. So Annie didn't flinch. Martina, this isn't about failing. You've always had ADHD, but you've been in roles where you could work with your brain. This new job just needs different strategies. You need to stop forcing yourself to use someone else's operating system. Okay, so the next day, Martina opened a fresh page in her notebook and wrote this: how can I be successful in this role using the way my brain works? That question launched an entire turning point. Now it began small. She set up a weekly 30-minute planning ritual, pairing her to do lists with Trello and color coded tasks by type and energy level. She capped each day's task list as 3 priorities, which created a visual dashboard she kept on her sticky note next to her screen. She also started using body doubling. She invited her colleague Jake to co work with her virtually for an hour every Monday morning to kick off the week. Jake quickly became more than a calendar partner. He was a safe sounding board who helped her talk through priorities without judgment. He would remind her of things like, "You're not broken," when she apologized for missing a team update. "You just have a different dashboard," he'd say. "Let's update it." Martina also decided to talk to Stacy. She didn't overshare, but she said enough to ask for what she needed: clearer expectations, more autonomy, and fewer last minute requests. She said to Stacy, "I'm someone who works best with structure and clarity. I'd love to agree on weekly deliverables in advance and use a shared doc to track progress instead of all these back and forth emails." And to her surprise, Stacy agreed. Over the next few months, things didn't magically get easy, but they did get better over time. Martina learned to plan around her energy by scheduling deep work in the late mornings and leaving more administrative tasks for the afternoons when her energy was lower. She used voice memos instead of written notes. She reframed mistakes as data, not personal failures. And she started treating her emotional swings with grace instead of shame. Martina also built in accountability systems. She sent Jake her weekly priorities every Monday. She booked walking meetings with herself and blocked time for transition rituals between tasks. Slowly, the spinning started to slow and the fog began to lift. Now, 6 months into the role, Martina is leading with more clarity and more kindness towards herself. She still has days where her brain zigzags or her motivation dips, but she has the tools, the systems, and the support to catch herself early. That's the key. So, Martina's story is really a reminder. When people with ADHD are empowered to work with their brains, not against them, they really can thrive. And when the people around them understand what support actually looks like, everyone benefits. ADHD may show up differently in each person, but the leadership lesson is universal. When we understand how our minds work and honor the minds of others, we all lead better. This series is about that kind of leadership, one that makes space for difference, one that values self awareness as much as strategy, and one that supports, not just performs. Thanks for joining me in this opening episode. Stay tuned for the next episode in this series with Stephanie Scheller and then Amy Shilladay. Thank you for listening to this episode of Transformative Leadership Conversations. If you're ready to take your leadership to the next level or empower your teams for success, I'm here to help. Reach out to me directly at winnie@winifred.org or check out my website at www.winniedasilva.com to learn more about my work in coaching executives, developing critical leadership skills, and working with clients to build effective teams. You can also find me on Substack and LinkedIn, and now on YouTube. You are always welcome to take a seat at the table where every conversation has the potential for transformative change.